When it comes to breeding snakes, Ben Renick is like an artist. He was a sharp businessman too, quickly becoming a rock star in the reptile industry. His wife played a big role in running the business alongside him. Lindley Renick is such a kind-hearted individual, a loving mother, and genuinely caring. They were super busy and happy, always working hard, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. But on June 8th of 2017, at about 5 in the afternoon, Lindley Renick drives home to where her home and her husband's snake facility is. She walks in and discovers her husband, sprawled out face down in a pool of blood. Panic sets in, and she's completely hysterical. Without wasting a second, she dials 911. When the paramedics show up, they notice a bite mark on Ben, indicating there's a snake on the loose in the house. There's a lot of damage to Ben's body, and blood is everywhere. But the police found something that caught their attention. On the shelf right above Ben's head, they discovered a shell casing, which made things a lot darker. That's when they started considering the possibility of homicide. But who would want to kill Ben Renick? That was the question everyone in town started asking, because nobody could have imagined anything like this happening, especially to Ben Renick, and it was a long wait until people got that answer. On a blistering summer day in June 2017, deputies from the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department were called to a rather unusual and dangerous death scene in Missouri. They attended the snake pit filled with over 3,000 exotic serpents where the call came from. The first responders were left questioning whether one of these snakes could have been involved in the death of the famous breeder Ben Renick. The police officers had never seen anything like it. They were holding shotguns in hand just in case. You could just feel the anxiety amongst everyone there. No one knew where the killer could be coiled or lurking. While checking out Ben's body, the officers stumbled upon the shocking revelation. With Ben face down, the real cause of death was hidden. It turns out he wasn't bitten by a massive snake after all. Instead, he had been shot 8 times, including one shot fired from really close up. This definitely wasn't just some random incident. The shots that struck Ben were mostly to his back, which made the police suspect he never saw it coming. Just a short distance away was Ben's wife, Lindley, who had come upon his body and was visibly shaken. Her grief was palpable, reflecting the deep sorrow of someone who has just lost someone dear. Ben's brother Sam was in the room when the police arrived, having been called by Lindley to come quickly. At the time of the incident, Sam and Ben Renick were residing in different houses with their families on a large 70-acre estate. They had spent their lives together there, raising their kids and enjoying weekend fishing trips, which kept their relationship strong. Along a secluded highway, roughly 80 miles west of St. Louis, there was a famous snake breeding operation known as Renick Reptiles, where Ben Renick established his thriving serpent empire. His fascination with snakes began in childhood, evolving from a simple hobby into a successful business, and he truly excelled in his craft. Ben and Lindley first met when they were teenagers. They reconnected in 2011, and they hit it off right away, and their relationship got pretty serious pretty quickly. They moved in together within the first year of dating. Lindley had a son from a previous relationship. Ben became a second father to the child. In 2014, Ben and Lindley made the wonderful decision to get married. Their wedding was a lovely, intimate gathering with family, making it a truly memorable occasion. Before long, they welcomed a baby into their lives, expanding their family alongside their thriving snake breeding business. Lindley was fascinated by Ben's enthusiasm for snakes and dedicated herself to supporting him, working tirelessly to care for the snakes, from handling to cleaning and organizing. In 2016, they introduced their second business, Essentia Spa, in Columbia, Missouri. This venture fulfilled a long-standing dream for Lindley, who had previously worked as a massage therapist. Launching her spa was a goal she had cherished, and it significantly empowered her. In 2017, Renick's snake business was thriving beyond expectations. Ben was exporting his snakes worldwide, reaching places like the UK and Japan, while also making appearances at reptile conventions across the US. He had plans to sell a significant portion of his ball python collection for approximately $1.2 million. Everything seemed to be going well for Ben and Lindley. They had just received an initial payment of at least $200,000, but unfortunately, their bright future was shattered when Ben was murdered. A facility like Renick Reptiles unfortunately attracts a lot of bad people. Bad people that see these snakes not as these beautiful, amazing creatures that they are, but see them as dollar signs. The investigators looked into the theory that Ben's murder may have been a robbery gone bad, but ruled it out because no snakes were missing. So the police started to focus more carefully at those closest to Ben. They definitely didn't want to exclude anybody from being a possible suspect. The day after his brother's murder, Sam Renick was brought in for questioning, and they also brought in Lindley. Both Lindley and Sam were cooperative in their initial interviews and did a gunshot residue test. During the interview, Sam says he understood why police would first focus on the family members. And he told investigators he could never imagine Lindley being involved since the Lindley they knew was very sweet and kind. But in Lindley's one-on-one interview with a detective, Lindley made a startling claim, saying that Sam might have had a motive to kill his brother. She said that it might have to do with Ben's plan to possibly sell the property where they all lived. She claimed Sam was upset about it because Ben inherited the property after another tragedy on the Renick family farm just 5 years earlier. The year 2012 brought a devastating loss for Renick family when Ben found his father, Frank Renick, who had ended his life. Frank was under scrutiny for his alleged role in a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme tied to counterfeit stock certificates. During the interview, Sam mentioned to the police that Ben's murder could potentially be a revenge act against their father, considering many people lost significant amounts of money because of him. However, that theory didn't gain any traction. Additionally, Sam, who had tested negative for gun residue on his hands, was cleared as a suspect after fully cooperating with the investigators. As detectives continued their investigation, the reptile community stepped up to help Ben's wife and children. They held an online auction of donated snakes and raised more than $40,000 for Lindley to help her during this time of crisis. 11 days after Ben's murder, Lindley spoke with detectives again with a startling confession. Lindley admitted she had been unfaithful during the marriage. She claimed it was just sex and it didn't mean anything. So the detectives checked the alibi of the men who she cheated with and cleared him of any suspicion. Investigators then interviewed Ashley Shaw, one of Lindley's employees and a close friend who she had confided in. Ashley was the manager at a Essentia spa. During the interview, Ashley said that Lindley has had multiple affairs and had been seeing and hooking up with a man named Brandon Blackwell before Ben's murder. Along with Lindley's affairs, investigators discovered Facebook messages between Ben and Lindley which revealed that Ben had found out the spa was losing money and that Lindley had lied to him about it. Ben sent a message to Lindley just hours before he was murdered which said, "No more lying. No more keeping things from me. No more not paying people and thinking it's okay to pay later." For months after Ben's murder, Lindley was in front of cops again and agreed to take a polygraph exam. Lindley's polygraph test was a dismal failure. So the detectives showed her the results of the polygraph and asked her why she failed the test. To which she replied, "I can't explain why I just failed that, but I didn't kill Ben." But investigators suspected she did and may have had help from yet another man in her life. His name is Michael Humphrey, an old ex-boyfriend and ex-con fresh out of prison on drug possession charges who she texted and called numerous times, including on the day her husband was murdered. But she continued to deny any involvement with the murder dozens of times during that investigation. The detectives had no witnesses, no murder weapon, or direct evidence linking her to Ben's murder, and Lindley's gunshot residue test had come back negative, so she left that interrogation room a free woman that day. The investigation hit a standstill for almost 3 years. During that time, many aspects of the lives of those connected to Ben's case underwent significant changes. The most surprising shift in behavior came from Ben Renick's widow, Lindley. Although the Renick family tried to be as compassionate as possible, they sensed something was off when Lindley cut off communication with them and prevented them from seeing the kids. In fact, just weeks following Ben's murder, and with her spa business failing, Lindley made a swift decision to sell the family home, shut down her operations, and leave town. This prompted some residents in Missouri to question whether Lindley had orchestrated the murder. Unfortunately, that question lingered without resolution until January 2020. In January 2020, the cops received a tip regarding Ben's case from the jailhouse. So the detectives decided to follow up on the tip, which led to fast changes to the case that went cold for 3 years. Brandon Blackwell, who was involved with Lindley during the week Ben was murdered, came forward to reveal everything he knows. He stated that they were dating at that time. A year and a half after Ben's death, Blackwell and Lindley had a child together. However, Lindley accused Blackwell of becoming threatening, resulting in their separation. She secured an order of protection, and Blackwell was subsequently charged with violating it and stalking her, charges to which he denies. Currently, he is in jail and is looking to strike a deal, primarily concerned with his release. Blackwell's story unfolds weeks prior to the tragic shooting of Ben Renick. According to him, Lindley and spa staff member Ashley Shaw created a harmful shake intended for Ben. One night, he consumed a protein drink that was packed with a significant amount of poison, and against all odds, he survived. The goal of the drink was for that to be Ben's last drink of his life, a lethal potion delivered by a wife to her husband. But after the pills didn't succeed in taking Ben's life, Brandon revealed that Lindley reached out to her former boyfriend, Michael Humphrey. They made their way to the farm together, where Michael came prepared with gloves and a firearm. Initially, he was supposed to carry out the act, but upon arrival, he handed the gun to Lindley, expressing his discomfort with the plan. She then entered the building and shot Ben multiple times. Brandon Blackwell informed the police that Lindley's spa employee Ashley was involved in the planning from the very beginning. On January 16, 2020, cops made their moves. Lindley Renick and Michael Humphrey were arrested and charged with the murder of Ben Renick. Loved ones and friends never saw it coming. Years passed before the Renick family actually saw Lindley's true nature. The family and local residents thought that her motive for the murder was purely financial. With the potential to receive millions from Ben Renick's death, including life insurance payouts, snake sales, and the family farm, the financial stakes were incredibly high. Following the arrest, Lindley continued to deny the allegations against her. This left investigators in need of substantial evidence, prompting them to take Ashley into custody. In return for a lighter sentence, Ashley decided to cooperate with the authorities, revealing details about the harmful ingredients in Lindley's dangerous smoothie. She claimed that Lindley had confided in her about being abused by Ben and had requested her to obtain prescription pills or anything that could assist in harming him. As a result, Ashley managed to get her about 15 Percocet pills. According to Ashley, after the shooting incident, Lindley initially pointed the finger at Michael Humphrey as the shooter, yet she claims that a few days later, Lindley changed her narrative. Ashley now alleges that Lindley confessed to being the actual killer. She explained that when they arrived at the location, Lindley was willing to proceed, and he gave her the gun to eliminate her husband. Following the murder, Ashley remarked that she never saw Lindley show any regret. In late 2021, the trials began for those accused of killing Ben Renick. The first to stand trial was Lindley's former boyfriend, Michael Humphrey. The prosecution argued that Lindley was the one who pulled the trigger while Humphrey was involved in the scheme. According to prosecutors, he played a key role in the conspiracy, provided the firearm, and helped eliminate her husband. Unfortunately, the murder weapon was never recovered. Humphrey's defense argued that Lindley had deceived him into visiting the snake farm, claiming she needed safety while asking Ben for the divorce. Instead, she caught him off guard by pulling out the gun and shooting her husband. The jury did not buy Humphrey's claim of being an innocent bystander. After just 5 hours of discussion, they convicted him of first-degree murder. Michael Humphrey changed his story after he was convicted of first-degree murder by the jury trial. He agreed to collaborate with the state, hoping this will lead to a possible parole in the future. Humphrey then confesses that he supplied the firearm used by Lindley to kill her husband and reveals its location, stating it can be found in his girlfriend's mother's attic. In the trial of Lindley, jurors needed to confront a pivotal question: who actually fired the gun? The prosecution depicted Lindley as heartless, comparing her to one of her husband's snakes. They argued that she shot Ben and then continued her day as if nothing was amiss. She went to the school, picked up her 2 children, and drove them back to the very spot where she knew she would find their father's lifeless body, a result of her own actions. The defense counters by saying that while Lindley lied and cheated on Ben, that doesn't make her a killer. She was not planning a murder. She was planning a divorce. They pointed the finger at Michael Humphrey, who was already convicted of murdering Ben Renick. Ashley Shaw, who worked closely with Lindley and is now the prosecution's key witness, insists that Michael Humphrey and Lindley were equally involved in the crime. According to Shaw, after the murder, Lindley returned to the spa and requested a shower, asking Ashley to thoroughly scrub her body and hands to eliminate any traces of evidence. Shaw then recounted to the jurors what Lindley revealed about the events at Renick Reptiles on the day Ben was killed. She stated that Michael became anxious and handed her the gun, leading her to shoot Ben multiple times in the back. However, the defense argues that Ashley Shaw, like Michael Humphrey, fabricated this account to escape a life sentence. Then prosecution called convicted murderer Michael Humphrey on stand to tell the truth from his side about how Lindley killed her husband. As the trial approached its conclusion, the defense called Lindley to share her perspective. She explained that she had been trying to flee her tumultuous and often violent marriage with Ben for many years. On the day of the incident, she had merely asked Michael Humphrey to keep her safe in case Ben reacted violently when she requested a divorce. Unbeknownst to her, Michael drew a gun and shot Ben. Lindley, expressing her shock, confessed that she hadn't been completely honest with the investigators, but insisted that her actions didn't equate to murder. Following a lengthy wait of nearly 5 years since the murder of Ben Renick, the judge revealed the verdict. Lindley was convicted of second-degree murder and armed criminal action. She received a sentence of 13 years for the murder charge and an extra 3 years for the armed criminal action. The Renick family was unhappy with the sentencing as they claimed Ben's life was worth more than 16 years.